Welcome to Summary of the Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization by Peter M. Senge. This narrative summary dives deep into the book's key concepts, structure, and insights, while weaving in the author's intent and real-world applications. It's written in a conversational tone suitable for an audiobook, aiming to engage listeners while staying true to the book's essence. Introduction. Imagine a world where organizations don't just survive, they thrive. A world where people work together not out of fear or compliance, but because they're inspired by a shared vision, constantly learning, adapting, and creating something meaningful. That's the vision Peter M. Senge lays out in the Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization. First published in 1990 and revised in 2006, this book isn't just a management manual. It's a manifesto for rethinking how we live, work, and grow together. I'm your guide for the next hour, and we're going to take a deep dive into Senge's ideas, exploring how our actions shape our reality and how we can transform it for the better. Senge, a senior lecturer at MIT and founder of the Society for Organizational Learning, argues that the organizations of the future, businesses, schools, even communities, must become learning organizations. These are places where people expand their capacity to create the results they truly desire, where new ways of thinking are nurtured, and where collective aspiration is set free. At the heart of this transformation are 5 disciplines: systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning. Systems thinking, the 5th discipline, ties them all together, helping us see the bigger picture in a fragmented world. Ready? Let's begin with how Senge sets the stage. Part 1. How our actions create our reality. Picture this. You're standing in a forest, chopping down a tree. You swing the axe, and it falls, but you don't hear the crash of another tree toppling miles away, felled by the ripple of your action. That's the world Peter Senge invites us into in the 5th discipline. Welcome to Part 1. How our actions create our reality, and how we can change it. We're going to explore how the choices we make, big or small, shape the systems around us, often in ways we don't see. Senge, an MIT thinker with a passion for learning, argues that our fragmented way of seeing the world traps us. But there's hope. By understanding these systems, we can change them. In 3 chapters, Senge lays the groundwork. First, he shows why learning organizations are the future. Then, he diagnoses what holds us back. Finally, he reveals how we're prisoners of systems and our own thinking. I'll weave in stories from the book and real life to bring it alive. Ready? Let's step into Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Give me a lever long enough, and single-handed I can move the world. Senge starts with a bang, quoting Archimedes, "Give me a lever long enough, and single-handed I can move the world." It's a bold promise, and he means it. Chapter 1 is his call to arms. The organizations that will thrive in our complex, interconnected world aren't the rigid hierarchies of the past. They're learning organizations. These are places where people at all levels expand their capacity to create what they truly desire, where new thinking is nurtured, and where collective aspiration runs free. It's not about one genius at the top, like a Henry Ford or a Bill Gates, figuring it all out. It's about everyone learning together. Why? Because the world's too messy now. Senge writes, as the world becomes more interconnected and business becomes more complex and dynamic, work must become more learningful. Think about it. In the 20th century, a single leader could steer a company like IBM to dominance. Today, industries shift overnight. Think of Kodak's fall as digital cameras rose, or how Tesla's electric dreams disrupted Detroit. One person can't keep up. Senge believes learning organizations tap into something deeper, our natural love for learning. He reminds us of infants, how they master walking or talking without a manual. Deep down, he says, we are all learners. He shares a personal example: great teams. Maybe you've been on one, a sports squad, a band, a work group, where trust and shared goals created magic. Senge recalls people he's met who've chased that feeling their whole lives after tasting it once. That's what a learning organization feels like. Extraordinary results from collective effort. Take the Apollo program. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and workers, not just one visionary, landed us on the moon. Senge's point? We've all got that potential, but most organizations stifle it with control and silos. Here's a real-world twist. Consider Toyota in the 1980s. While American automakers like GM clung to top-down assembly lines, Toyota empowered workers to stop production if they spotted a flaw. That wasn't just process, it was learning in action, catching problems early. By the 2000s, Toyota's market cap rivaled the big three combined. Senge sees this as proof. Organizations that learn together don't just survive, they reshape industries. Chapter 1 is his vision, a lever to move the world. But first, we need to see what's holding us back. Chapter 2. Does your organization have a learning disability? Now Senge gets under the hood. Chapter 2 asks, does your organization have a learning disability? It's a provocative question, and he answers with a firm yes. Most organizations, he argues, are designed to fail at learning, not because people aren't smart, but because the way we're taught to think and work creates blind spots. He lists 7 learning disabilities, and they're so common you'll nod along. Let's unpack a few with examples to see how they play out. First up, I am my position. Senge tells of a steel company in the 1980s that closed plants and offered retraining to workers. It flopped. Why? Workers couldn't imagine themselves beyond their roles. I am a lathe operator, they'd say, stuck in an identity crisis. Their loyalty wasn't to the company's mission, it was to their job title. Ever met someone who says, I'm just the accountant, or that's not my department? That's it. Senge cites a Detroit automaker dissecting a Japanese car. They found one bolt used 3 times, while their car used 3 different bolts, because 3 separate engineering teams worked in silos. The Japanese designer saw the whole engine. The Americans saw their piece. Result? Slower, costlier assembly. Next, the enemy is out there. We love blaming others, competitors, the market, even colleagues. Senge recounts People Express Airlines in the 1980s. Once a darling of low fares, it crashed after slashing prices and buying Frontier Airlines to fight competitors. The real issue? Service quality tanked, driving customers away. Instead of fixing that, they pointed outward. Sound familiar? Think of Blockbuster blaming Netflix for its downfall, ignoring how it clung to late fees and physical stores while streaming took off. Senge says this blame game comes from, I am my position. We don't see how our actions ripple beyond our role. Another gem, the illusion of taking charge. Senge warns that being proactive can backfire if we don't understand the system. Imagine a manager cutting costs to boost profits, only to gut training and morale, tanking performance later. It's like mopping the floor during a flood without fixing the leak. These disabilities aren't quirks. They're systemic, baked into how we're educated and managed. Senge notes a Shell study. Most big firms don't live past 40 years, half a human lifespan. Why? They can't learn fast enough. Chapter 2 is a wake-up call. Brilliance isn't enough if we're blind to these traps. Chapter 3, Prisoners of the System or Prisoners of Our Own Thinking, brings it home with a story you'll never forget, the beer game. Senge used this at MIT, and it's a revelation. Imagine you're in a beer supply chain. Retailer, wholesaler, brewer. Customers order a few extra cases one week. You order more to cover it. The wholesaler orders more from the brewer. Delays kick in. 4 weeks to brew, 2 to ship. Suddenly, everyone's overordering, stockpiles balloon, then demand drops, and you're stuck with excess. Total chaos from a tiny ripple. Senge's teams averaged $2,000 in costs. The do-nothing strategy cost $825. Why? Everyone reacted rationally in their bubble, blind to the system. This isn't just a game. Senge ties it to real cycles, like the 1980s drum chip shortage. Demand spiked, manufacturers overbuilt, then crashed when supply flooded. Or the auto industry. In 1989, Wall Street Journal reported Detroit bracing for a slump after overproducing during a boom. Senge's insight. We amplify problems because we don't see the delays and feedback loops. He calls us prisoners of the system, but also of our thinking. In the beer game, players rarely collaborated or questioned the structure. They just reacted. Here's a modern echo, the 2021 supply chain crisis. A pandemic spike in demand for goods, laptops, furniture, clogged ports and factories. Retailers overordered, ships queued up, and prices soared. Then demand eased, leaving warehouses stuffed. Sound like the beer game? It's the same pattern, fragmented thinking, reactive moves. Senge argues we're not just trapped by external systems, like supply chains, but by our mental habits. We focus on our piece, not the whole. Chapter 3 ends with a challenge. To change reality, we must see the systems we're in and our role in them. Conclusion. So what's part 1 telling us? Senge lays out a paradox. Our actions create our reality, but we're often clueless about how. Chapter 1 offers hope. Learning organizations can break free, leveraging our innate curiosity. Chapter 2 diagnoses the barriers, those sneaky disabilities like, I am my position, or the enemy is out there. Chapter 3 proves it with the beer game and real-world echoes, showing we're prisoners until we shift our thinking. It's a foundation for what's next, the 5 disciplines, starting with systems thinking. Think about your life, work, family, community. Where do you see these patterns? Maybe a team blaming the other department, or a quick fix making things worse. Senge's lever is in reach, but it starts with seeing the whole. Thanks for joining me on this dive into part 1. The journey's just beginning. Stick around for the tools to change it all. Part 2, the 5th discipline. Imagine you're piecing together a puzzle, but the pieces keep shifting. Some grow, some shrink, and they all connect in ways you didn't expect. That's the world Peter Senge tackles in part 2 of the 5th discipline, called the 5th discipline, the cornerstone of the learning organization. Welcome to Journey into the heart of his book. I'm your guide, and we're diving into systems thinking, the discipline that ties everything together. Over 4 chapters, Senge shows us how to see the world as a web of patterns, not isolated events, and how that shift can transform organizations. Part 2 is where theory meets revelation. Chapter 4 lays out the laws of systems. Chapter 5 calls for a mental shift. Chapter 6 gives us templates to spot recurring traps. Chapter 7 shows how growth can sustain or collapse. I'll bring in stories from the book, like Wonder Tech, and real-world examples, like urban sprawl or tech booms, to make it stick. Ready? Let's uncover the 5th discipline. Chapter 4, The Laws of the 5th Discipline, is Senge's rulebook for systems. He lists 11 laws, distilled from decades of systems thinking and their eye-openers. Take Law 1. Today's problems come from yesterday's solutions. Picture a city that builds highways to ease traffic. Years later, sprawl and congestion worsen because more cars flood in. That's from Senge's mentor, Jay Forrester, who studied urban dynamics. Or Law 3. The harder you push, the harder the system pushes back. Think of a company slashing prices to boost sales, only to spark a price war that tanks profits, like Walmart and rivals in the 2000s. Law 7. The easy way out usually leads back in, hits hard. Senge tells a Sufi tale of a man searching for a lost key under a street lamp, not because he dropped it there, but because the light's better. Businesses do this too, focusing on quick fixes like layoffs instead of rethinking strategy. A real example? Kodak in the 1990s, pouring cash into film while digital cameras loomed, avoiding the hard shift. These laws aren't abstract. They explain why good intentions fail. Senge says systems thinking lets us see the counterintuitive behavior of complex systems, like why more police can sometimes mean more crime if root causes aren't addressed. Chapter 4 sets the stage. To change reality, we need new rules. Chapter 5, A Shift of Mind, is where systems thinking gets personal. Senge calls it metanoia, a Greek word for a transformative shift, like waking up to a new reality. He writes, you can only understand the system of a rainstorm by contemplating the whole, not any individual part. It's about seeing patterns over snapshots. He introduces feedback loops, reinforcing loops, like a snowball rolling downhill, amplify change. Think of viral TikTok trends exploding overnight. Balancing loops, like a thermostat, stabilize, your body sweating to cool off. Senge shares a story from his MIT days. Kids intuitively grasp this. Show them a faucet and tub, and they predict water levels. They see the system. Adults? We fixate on the tap, missing the drain. In business, this plays out daily. Take Amazon's early years, reinvesting every penny into growth, reinforcing loop, while balancing customer trust with low prices. Contrast that with Sears, stuck in a snapshot of retail dominance, ignoring e-commerce rise. Senge's shift isn't just technical, it's philosophical. He says, at the heart of a learning organization is a shift of mind, from seeing ourselves as separate from the world to connected to it. It's realizing our actions don't just react to reality, they shape it. Chapter 5 is the pivot. See differently, act differently. Now, Chapter 6, Nature's Templates, identifying the patterns that control events, gives us tools, systems archetypes. These are like cheat codes for spotting traps. Senge highlights fixes that fail. A quick solution backfires. He cites a firm using overtime to meet deadlines. Short-term win, long-term burnout. Sound familiar? Think of the 2008 financial crisis. Banks bailed out with cheap loans, kept lending recklessly, delaying reform. Another archetype, shifting the burden, is when we lean on a crutch instead of fixing the root. Senge mentions alcoholism. Drinking to cope shifts the burden from addressing pain. In organizations, it's outsourcing IT to dodge building internal skills, only to lose control later. Then there's limits to growth. Senge teases this here, but it's a teaser for Chapter 7. Imagine a startup rocketing up, say, Zoom in 2020, then hitting bandwidth limits or staff exhaustion. Archetypes aren't doom, they're warnings. Senge says Shell used them in the 1970s to predict OPEC's rise, outpacing rivals stuck in linear thinking. These templates turn chaos into clarity, showing how patterns repeat across industries, even nature, like predator-prey cycles. Chapter 6 is practical. Spot the pattern, break the cycle. Chapter 7, Self-Limiting or Self-Sustaining Growth, ties it together with WonderTech, a fictional tech firm Senge crafts from real patterns. WonderTech is hot product drives sales, but delays in delivery, a balancing loop, cap growth. Orders pile up, customers flee, and the boom busts. It's limits to growth in action. Success sows its own seeds of failure if limits, like capacity, aren't addressed. Senge contrasts this with a fix, hold delivery standards steady, forcing capacity to scale smartly. Result? Sustainable growth. Real life echoes this. Netflix in the 2000s grew fast with DVDs, but saw streaming's limit looming, bandwidth and content. They pivoted early, building infrastructure and originals, dodging WonderTech's fate. Blockbuster didn't, clinging to stores as growth stalled. Senge's lesson? Growth isn't linear, it's systemic. Reinforcing loops, sales, hit balancing loops, limits, and without systems thinking, you crash. He writes, systems thinking continually reminds us that the whole can exceed the sum of its parts. Chapter 7 proves it. Master the 5th discipline, and growth can last. Conclusion. So what's Part 2 all about? Senge unveils systems thinking as the cornerstone of learning organizations. Chapter 4's laws, like today's problems come from yesterday's solutions, teach us the rules. Chapter 5's shift of mind connects us to the whole. Chapter 6's archetypes, like fixes that fail, spot the traps. Chapter 7's WonderTech shows how to sustain growth, not sabotage it. From Shell to Netflix, the examples scream. See the system, win the game. Think about your world. Where's a quick fix failing? A limit choking growth? Senge's 5th discipline isn't just theory. It's a lens to change how you act. Part 2 is the intellectual core, but the journey's not over. Next comes applying it with 4 more disciplines. Thanks for exploring this with me. Stay tuned for the how-to. Part 3, the core disciplines. Imagine an organization where every person's potential shines, where hidden assumptions are challenged, and where people rally around a purpose bigger than themselves. That's the dream Peter Senge unfolds in Part 3 of the 5th discipline, titled The Core Disciplines, Building the Learning Organization. Welcome to a 30-minute exploration of the 4 disciplines that bring systems thinking to life. I'm your guide, and we're diving into personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning, the building blocks of a learning organization. Across 4 chapters, Senge shows how these practices transform individuals, teams, and entire systems. Chapter 8 ignites personal purpose. Chapter 9 cracks open our assumptions. Chapter 10 unites us in vision. Chapter 11 turns teams into learning powerhouses. I'll weave in stories from the book, like Shell's foresight, and real examples, like Google's culture or Patagonia's mission, to ground it all. Ready? Let's start with the spark within. Chapter 8, Personal Mastery, is about lighting your own fire. Senge defines it as the discipline of continually clarifying and deepening our personal vision, balancing aspiration with reality. It's not about dominating others. It's mastery of self, like a musician perfecting a craft. He quotes Bill O'Brien, ex-CEO of Hanover Insurance, lamenting how people die at 30 and are buried at 70, losing their spark to soul-crushing jobs. Personal mastery is the antidote, knowing what you truly want and pursuing it with discipline. Senge introduces creative tension, the gap between your vision and current reality. It's not stress, it's energy. Picture an artist dreaming of a masterpiece while staring at a blank canvas. That pull drives growth. He shares a story of a manager who wanted to innovate but faced bureaucracy. By holding that tension, not caving to quick fixes, she pushed through, launching a new product line. In real life, think of Steve Jobs. His vision of a computer for the rest of us clashed with 1980s tech norms, but he held the tension, birthing the Mac. Senge says this isn't selfish. It's the spiritual foundation of learning organizations. If individuals don't grow, the system stagnates. Take Southwest Airlines. Founder Herb Kelleher encouraged employees to bring their whole selves to work: humor, heart, purpose. That personal mastery fueled a culture that outlasted bigger rivals. Chapter 8 is personal but universal. Your growth seeds the whole. Chapter 9, Mental Models, digs into the lenses we see through, our assumptions, often unconscious. Senge writes, mental models are deeply ingrained assumptions, generalizations, or even pictures or images that influence how we understand the world. Trouble is, we cling to them, even when they're wrong. He cites Shell in the 1970s. Planners challenged the model that oil would stay cheap, running scenarios of OPEC's rise. When the 1973 crisis hit, Shell adapted while rivals floundered. That's mental models in action, questioning the status quo. Senge shares a tale of two car makers. One's engineers assumed safety meant heavy frames. Another saw it as crumple zones. Same goal, different models, vastly different cars. In real life, look at Nokia versus Apple. Nokia's model was, phones are for calling, so they ignored touchscreens. Apple's, phones are computers. The iPhone rewrote the industry. Senge says the discipline is reflection and inquiry, turning the mirror inward and asking, why do I think this? It's tough. Defensiveness kicks in. Senge recalls a team arguing over strategy. Each dug into their view, until one asked, what if we're both half right? That open dialogue. Mental models aren't just personal, they shape organizations. Chapter 9 challenges us. See your lens, shift your world. Chapter 10, Shared Vision, is the glue. Senge asks, what do we want to create together? A true shared vision isn't a memo from the top. It's a collective picture of the future that inspires. He cites Ford's early days. Henry Ford didn't just sell cars. He envisioned public transportation for the masses. Workers bought in, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Senge contrasts this with compliance. Think of a corporate vision statement no one remembers. Shared vision is enrollment, not coercion. He shares Hanover Insurance's turnaround. O'Brien rallied staff around doing well by doing good, cutting shady policies. It wasn't his vision, it emerged from the team. Real-world echo? Patagonia's Earth is our only shareholder. Employees live it, from recycling gear to suing polluters. Senge says leaders don't dictate, they unearth what's already there. In the 1960s, NASA's Man on the Moon wasn't JFK's alone. Engineers, janitors, all felt it. But it's fragile. Senge warns of visions fading if trust erodes. Think of Enron's hollow integrity pledge. Chapter 10 is a call. Build a vision that's real, shared, alive. Chapter 11, Team Learning, is where it all comes together. Senge argues teams, not individuals, are the real learning units. He contrasts discussion, competitive idea tossing, with dialogue, a free flow of meaning where assumptions are suspended. He tells of a management team stuck in defensiveness, each pushing their plan, until they paused, reflected, and found a third way. The result? A strategy stronger than any one mind. Senge draws on physicist David Bohm. Dialogue taps collective intelligence, like a jazz band improvising in sync. Real example? Google's early days. Small teams debated fiercely but aligned on organize the world's information, birthing search innovations. Senge says it's messy. Ego, fear, habits block it, but vital. He cites Shell again. Teams modeling oil futures didn't just predict, they learned together, adapting fast. Contrast that with General Motors in the 1980s. Siloed teams built cars that didn't sell, missing Japan's rise. Team learning needs practice, inquiry, reflection, trust. Chapter 11 proves it. When teams learn, the organization soars. Conclusion. What's Part 3 telling us? Senge's core disciplines: personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, team learning, build the learning organization from the inside out. Chapter 8's personal mastery sparks purpose, like Southwest's spirit. Chapter 9's mental models break assumptions, like Shell's foresight. Chapter 10's shared vision unites, like Patagonia's mission. Chapter 11's team learning amplifies, like Google's breakthroughs. Together, they weave into systems thinking, the fifth discipline. Where do you see this? A job where passion's faded? A team stuck in debate? Senge offers tools to shift it, starting with you. Thanks for diving into Part 3 with me. Next up, putting it into practice. Stay curious. Part 4, Reflections from Practice. Imagine taking a grand theory and testing it in the wild. Messy workplaces, struggling communities, global crises. That's what Peter Senge does in Part 4 of the fifth discipline, Reflections from Practice. A journey through 6 chapters added in the 2006 edition, where Senge looks back on 15 years of putting his ideas, systems thinking, and the 4 core disciplines into action. I'm your guide, and we'll explore how these concepts move from MIT classrooms to boardrooms, schools, and beyond. From Chapter 12's pioneers to Chapter 17's frontiers, Senge shares stories of real people, leaders, teams, citizens, making it work. I'll weave in his examples, like Unilever's green shift, plus fresh ones, like Tesla's bold bets, to show the impact. This is where theory meets reality. Let's dive in. Chapter 12, Foundations, spotlights early adopters who laid the groundwork. Senge celebrates practitioners like Unilever, where in the 1990s, leaders used systems thinking to map sustainable supply chains. Think palm oil that doesn't raise forests. It wasn't just profit, it was purpose, aligning with personal mastery and shared vision. Another gem, Roca, a Boston nonprofit, tackled youth violence with dialogue and mental models, cutting recidivism where prisons failed. Senge sees these as proof. Learning principles transcend business. Take a modern Echo Interface, the carpet company. In the 1990s, CEO Ray Anderson flipped their model from take, make, waste to zero emission, inspired by systems thinking. By 2020, they'd cut carbon 50% while growing. These foundations aren't flashy. They're quiet revolutions, showing how disciplines scale from one person's spark to systemic change. Chapter 12 sets the tone. It's real, it's happening. Chapter 13, Impetus, zooms in on the spark, individuals who kick things off. Senge tells of a police chief in Madison, Wisconsin, who in the 1980s used systems thinking to cut crime, not with more arrests, but by mapping community trust loops. Crime dropped, proving small shifts ripple big. Or a healthcare VP at Detroit's Henry Ford Health System, who rallied staff around patient care, not just budgets, boosting outcomes. Think of Elon Musk at Tesla. His relentless personal mastery drove a vision of electric cars when others scoffed. By 2020, Tesla's market cap dwarfed GM's, fueled by a shared vision employees lived. Senge's point? Change starts with local heroes seeing a need and acting, not waiting for permission. Chapter 13 is the push. One person, armed with these disciplines, can ignite a movement. Chapter 14, Strategies, gets tactical. How do you build a learning organization? Senge offers a roadmap. Develop skills, like dialogue, align culture, and create learning infrastructures. Think workshops or networks. He cites Shell's scenario planning. Teams didn't just predict oil shocks. They built a culture of inquiry that outlasted crises. Or Harley-Davidson's turnaround. In the 1980s, leaders fostered team learning, pulling workers into design, reviving the brand. A modern twist? Google's 20% time. Employees tinker on passion projects, sparking Gmail and Maps. It's an infrastructure for personal mastery and team learning baked into the system. Senge warns it's slow, culture shifts take years, but the payoff is resilience. Chapter 14 is the how-to. Plant seeds, nurture them, watch them grow. Chapter 15, the leader's new work, redefines leadership. Senge says leaders aren't controllers, they're designers, teachers, stewards. He profiles Darcy Winslow at Nike, who in the 2000s aligned innovation with sustainability. Think Flyknit shoes cutting waste. She didn't dictate. She shaped an environment where teams thrived. Or Bill O'Brien at Hanover, teaching staff to see systems, not silos, turning losses into gains. Look at Satya Nadella at Microsoft. Taking over in 2014, he shifted from know-it-all to learn-it-all, fostering dialogue and vision. By 2020, Microsoft's cloud soared. Senge says leaders hold the tension between today's reality and tomorrow's dream, using all 5 disciplines. Chapter 15 is a call, lead by enabling, not commanding. Chapter 16, System Citizens, zooms out to the planet. Senge urges us to see ourselves in larger systems, climate, poverty, health. He highlights the Global Compact, where firms like Unilever pledge sustainability, using systems maps to cut emissions. Or rural Mexico, where farmers and NGOs modeled water use, doubling yields sustainably. Consider Greta Thunberg. Her personal mastery sparked a shared vision, mobilizing millions to rethink climate systems. Senge ties this to team learning. Global challenges need collective insight, not lone heroes. He admits it's daunting. Feedback loops like deforestation spiral fast, but possible. Chapter 16 is bold. We're not just in organizations. We're in the world. Chapter 17, Frontiers, Peers Ahead. Senge asks, could learning organizations spark a new era? He points to Toyota, its lean system, rooted in team learning, redefined manufacturing. Or African grassroots groups, like Kenya's Green Belt movement, planting trees and hope with systems thinking. Could this scale? Senge imagines an industrial revolution of learning, not machines. Think of SpaceX. Its vision of Mars blends all 5 disciplines, pushing boundaries daily. Senge sees hope in such pioneers, but cautions, the prevailing system of control and short-termism fights back. Chapter 17 is a horizon. The future's unwritten, and we're the writers. Conclusion. What's part 4 about? Senge's reflections show the 5 disciplines in action. Chapter 12's foundations, like interface, prove it works. Chapter 13's impetus, like Tesla's spark, shows it starts small. Chapter 14's strategies, like Google's culture, give the how. Chapter 15's leaders, like Nadella, redefine roles. Chapter 16's citizens, like Thunberg, go global. Chapter 17's frontiers, like SpaceX, dream big. It's not theory, it's practice, messy and real. Where do you fit? A leader? A citizen? Senge's lever is yours to lift. Thanks for joining me in part 4. The journey's alive, and you're part of it. Next, the coda. Keep listening. Part 5, Coda and Appendices. Imagine looking down at Earth from space, a fragile, swirling hole where every action ripples across continents and generations. That's the lens Peter Senge offers in Part 5 of the 5th discipline, titled Coda, followed by a trio of appendices. Welcome to a 30-minute journey wrapping up this transformative book. I'm your guide, and we're stepping into Chapter 18, The Indivisible Whole, then exploring 3 toolkits that bring the 5 disciplines to life. This is Senge's final word, and his practical gift. Part 5 isn't just a goodbye. It's a bridge from theory to action. The coda ties the disciplines to a cosmic perspective, while the appendices arm us with maps, archetypes, and a process for change. I'll blend Senge's examples, like astronaut Rusty Schweikart, with fresh ones, like climate action today, to make it real. Let's begin with the view from above. Chapter 18, The Indivisible Whole, is Senge's poetic finale. He quotes astronaut Russell Rusty Schweikart, who, during Apollo 9 in 1969, gazed at Earth from orbit. Schweikart saw no borders, just a beautiful, warm, living object, fragile yet alive. Senge uses this to frame the 5 disciplines: systems thinking, personal mastery, mental models, shared vision, and team learning aren't just for organizations. They're about our place in the universe. He writes, real learning gets to the heart of what it means to be human, reconnecting us to the whole. This isn't abstract. Senge recalls his own shift, teaching at MIT. realizing fragmented thinking, solving problems in silos, misses the big picture. He ties it to the beer game from part 1. Retailers, wholesalers, brewers, all rational, yet chaos reigns because they don't see the system. Now, scale that up: climate change, inequality, pandemics. Senge sees Earth as Schweikart did: one system, indivisible. A modern echo? The 2020 pandemic. Nations hoarded masks, shut borders, but the virus didn't care. Global supply chains faltered, revealing our interdependence. Or take the Paris Climate Accord. Countries pledging carbon cuts, but only collective action, like the EU's Green Grid, bends the curve. Senge's point? Learning organizations aren't about profit alone. They're labs for living as system citizens. He ends with hope. If we master these disciplines, we can heal the whole, starting where we stand. Chapter 18 is a call to see ourselves not as separate, but as part of Earth's story. Conclusion. So, what's the takeaway from the 5th discipline? Senge challenges us to rethink everything: how we work, lead, and live. The 5 disciplines aren't a quick fix. They're a lifelong journey. Systems thinking reveals the patterns we're caught in. Personal mastery ignites our purpose. Mental models free us from outdated assumptions. Shared vision unites us. Team learning amplifies our collective potential. Together, they transform organizations from machines of mediocrity into living systems of possibility. Senge's optimism shines through, but he's no dreamer. He knows the prevailing system of management, with its focus on control, competition, and short-term metrics, won't change overnight. Yet, he sees hope in the practitioners he's met, from CEOs to teachers, who embody these disciplines. As he writes, the prevailing system is dedicated to mediocrity. It forces people to work harder to compensate for failing to tap the spirit and collective intelligence that characterizes working together at their best. His book is a call to tap that spirit. For you, the listener, this might spark a question. Where can you apply these ideas? At work? In your community? In your own life? Senge believes we're all learners, capable of moving the world with the right lever. Maybe that lever is in your hands now. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the 5th discipline. Keep learning. There's a whole world waiting. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and please remember to subscribe to receive notification of upcoming recordings. See you in next video.